What's up, folks? Welcome to 4th and 16 Sports. I'm your host, Ellis Tolbert, coming to you tonight live from Pronk Studios here in Greenville, South Carolina. I hope you guys are having a great night tonight. It is Tuesday, and we are ready to talk college football. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. We're going to be talking about Clemson versus FSU. You know, we want to go ahead and get at it. We're chomping at the bit after that Notre Dame loss. We're also going to be talking some ACC football, some SEC football, Big 10, Big 12, and Pac-12. And we're also going to go ahead and talk about, South Carolina Gamecocks getting rid of their head coach, Muschamp, about a year too late. Anyway, I hope you guys are having a great time tonight. If you'll do us a favor, if you're watching over on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe to us, hit the notification bell. We need that. We're trying to get our road to 1,000 subscribers. We can get that super chat hit up. We're also over on YouTube, on Facebook, simulcasting from Seldom Used Reserve and The Roar. I would ask if you're in the comment section over there, just to make sure you comment, and that way we can see it here. Join the conversation. It's going to pop up. We're going to try to interact with you guys and have fun. So let's go ahead and get after it. Faxon Childress, how are you doing tonight, my friend? Having a good night?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to talk about some college football tonight. You know, Clemson's got a big matchup. Well, typically what is a big matchup? Maybe a big matchup. But the way they've been playing lately, maybe it is a big matchup. But Clemson's going to travel down to Tallahassee this week. Excited to talk about that. Hopefully the Tigers can secure a win and get back in the win column.
That's right. Folks, if you'll do us a favor, too, let us know in the comment section if we have any kind of audio, video issues. We want to get those taken care of as soon as possible. We got our main man, Drew, in the back. He's handling the controls, so he'll be on that in just a second. So, again, first and foremost, thank you guys for watching with us. It is Tuesday night. We got a big game. We already went through this. Is it a big game? Of course it's a big game. Every game should be a big game. You don't want to disrespect any opponent. But this opponent is struggling. I think this game is a noon game. It is going to be called by Dave Pasch and none only than the other man, Mike Golick.
Yeah.
He's going to talk about Notre Dame win at least 50 times in this game. He's going to say, yeah, and last game that Clemson played against Notre Dame that they lost, they blah, blah, blah. Are you ready for that? What's the over and under of how many times he's going to talk about it?
I'm going to say like at least 25.
Easily 25.
We might be getting live look-ins on the Notre Dame game, too. They're like, oh, let's take a break to see who beat Clemson last week. Pan over.
I know, right? Actually, you might want to because North Carolina's offense can score. So we'll see what happens in that one. But again, this game is going to be pretty interesting. Clemson's coming in without Jamie Skalski yet again. We might not have Mike Jones Jr. and Tyler Davis yet again. Frank Ladson's not going to be playing in this game. There's a lot of people hurt, and that's been the rhyme and reason for Clemson for the last few weeks. Just a lot of injuries, man. Long season. Of course, everything's abbreviated with COVID. You're trying to just do your best, but Clemson has been hit with the injury bug unlike any other year I've seen lately. But I still feel like this game is one that Clemson can win with the reserves.
Oh, I think it'll get ugly personally, and I think Clemson from here on out for the rest of the year, you got to have a chip on your shoulder. When you lose that game, I mean, first regular season loss since 2017. A lot of these young kids haven't tasted losing in a while, and we talked about this last week. We talked about this after the Notre Dame game, that this is the first taste of a loss in a lot of these young kids' mouth, and it's going to be interesting to see how they bounce back and respond. We're really going to see what Clemson's made of this week, and while they're going to win regardless, it's going to be a mentality thing and an attitude thing that I'm going to be looking for on the field. Yeah,
and, like you said, this is not going to be a test of your depth. Of course, the last few weeks it has been. You had rough and tough game against Boston College, and then Notre Dame just took it out of you. It took 2 overtimes, and during that it seemed like the entire team got hurt. But it's one of those things now where I feel like, Clemson can win this one with their reserves, but it's important to get these guys these reps for games like we just saw, especially going forward in the future. We don't know what's going to happen with COVID. COVID could have one of those things where we might get ravaged by players. You see all these other schools out there. Miami had like 13 players out. So it's going to be one of those things where Clemson needs to get this depth. And we talk about this all the time. Offensive line, secondary play, linebacker play. We need some of those younger guys to get reps. And this is the perfect game for it.
Yeah.
I have, Trevor's coming back in this game. I can imagine he's pretty salty.
Yeah. I mean, when you go what is he, 33-1 as the Clemson starter, and you leave for 2 games, and you have that game against BC and almost lose, and It wasn't even DJ's fault, really. But
No, it wasn't.
I think more of Trevor's got to be thinking, I got to get back in there. I got to go help my team win a game.
Well, and, I'm not going to sit here and say that the kid doesn't want to win the Heisman.
Oh, yeah.
But he wants to win the Heisman. I mean,
Everyone
no
wants to
player
win the
doesn't. What competitor is like, yeah, I don't ever want to win the Heisman. Who cares about it? No, of course
And
he
he
wants
was
the
gonna
national
win it,
championship, but why not get a Heisman too? It's just like going #1 overall. It doesn't matter, right?
He was going to win it. I'm convinced that he was going to win the Heisman.
He was going to win it.
Kyle.
Now, here's a question for you. He goes out here and lights it up these next 3 weeks, gets a rematch where he plays against Notre Dame. Then the voting starts. Do you think he has a shot to get into the Heisman Trophy conversation yet again?
I think he needs numbers desperately at this point. He needs his numbers, and he's going to need to stay in a lot of these games. And I think you might see this week, especially with DJ playing a lot the last couple of weeks. Obviously, he's starting and finishing both games. Trevor, I think you're going to see him in the third and fourth quarter of this game, regardless of score, just to kind of get him back into the flow of things.
I think so, too.
And DJ's been playing a lot anyway, so you can't use the excuse of, we need to get DJ reps. That's not an excuse.
Yeah, he's got 2 starts under his belt.
He's got 2 starts under his belt, and he's played in our toughest game of the season. We know he's insanely good.
Yes.
We don't need to see any more of him. We need Trevor to get his numbers for the Heisman, and we need him to get reps so he's ready for that rematch against Notre Dame. And I think if he plays into the third and fourth quarter in a lot of these games, you see him put up a couple of games, 350 yards, 400 yards, 4 or 5 touchdowns. He could get back in the running for Heisman.
Yeah,
and he's still like 3rd or 4th in odds for Heisman Trophy.
Yeah, and you
winner.
can't really penalize the kid for not playing.
Yeah.
It's not like he chose
It's
COVID.
not like he went out there and stunk it up in 3 straight games and threw a bunch of picks.
He was leading everything, and then that just kind of happened to him. But it is what it is. You mentioned something very good, him getting stats. Now, Adam Fuller, we want to know, can this defensive coordinator at Florida State, of course, very familiar with Coach Norvell, can he stop Clemson? Can he get their offense flustered? Can he get them into 2nd and long? And that's something I want to talk about really quick. Clemson's been pretty bad on first down the last few games. Actually, this awful. And it's gotten you into situations where your 2nd down was long, and then you would go into a 3rd and long. Now, Clemson's been really good at 3rd and long. But I would prefer Clemson get of course, everything's perfect world, but you would prefer to have a 2nd and short.
There's a very easy
3rd
fix
and manageable,
to this.
Right?
Stop running the ball on 2nd and long.
Yeah.
That is not a running
we
down.
We had our absolute worst 3rd down game against Notre Dame.
Yeah, and that really killed us. But seriously, stop running the ball on 2nd and long. If you're ballsy enough to throw the ball on 1st down, 2nd and 10 becomes a passing down. That's not a running down.
No.
Tony Allen needs to understand that.
Yeah.
You running up the middle with Travis Etienne to make it 3rd and 8 instead of 3rd and 10 isn't accomplishing anybody anything.
Yeah,
just throw the ball again.
To be honest, there is no middle in Clemson's offensive line right now. There is no middle. Right now, you're having a little bit of issues with injury. You had Kate Stewart get a little bit hurt, a little banged up. You had Matt Bockhorst get hurt as well. Will Putnam's been out there playing good football, but he can only last for so long. You want to make sure these guys get some spell. There's nobody to spell these guys, and they're bringing in Walker Parks now, a guy who I think has earned a lot of playing time, in my opinion. What I saw against Notre Dame, one of the best D-lines that we're going to see all this year, he was out there holding his own. Same for Mason Trotter. I think he's got a little bit more to do. He got baptized out there against Notre Dame, but that's what you want. You want these guys, and, Dabo talked about this before the season, that the younger part of the offensive line was like fish out of water. And you didn't want to believe it because you always wanted to say Clemson has no knocks. They have no deficiencies, right? Well, we do.
Yeah, and we actually have a comment, John Sarian coming in. He's saying Clemson's bottom 4 in the ACC in rushing yards per game.
Yeah, I think
that is a deficiency.
3.4 yards.
That is a deficiency.
3.4 yards. And the thing is, you got to consider this too. Our yards are adjusted by Travis Etienne breaking tackles. Now, you got to think about this. We break off a lot of long runs. Travis Etienne has pretty good stats. I think he's like 600 and something yards
rushing. If this
rushing.
team had an average running back, that would be 2.5.
He would have no rushing yards because he probably breaks tackles better than anybody in college football.
Yeah.
But if he can't do that, and this is why we want to talk about that running back rotation as well, the guys behind him can't come in and spell, then, right now that's really not looking good. Now, I want to make sure people understand the difference between inside zone, outside zone, blast, counter, stuff like that. Now, anytime Clemson runs an outside zone or anything counter or outside to the edges, if the running backs don't pick up yards, a lot of that is on them just not seeing the holes, being disciplined. If it's in an interior run, that has a lot to do with your quarterback. That's a lot to do with your running back, especially in RPO situations. Those guys have to be on the same page. I don't know that DJ and Trevor were on the same page because they didn't have enough time to be, right?
Yeah, and we have Braxton Matthews coming in with another comment. He's saying, we have the best running back in the nation. That's wild.
Yeah,
and
it's wild because you want to think, hey, we should have more, right?
There is zero excuse for the offensive line to have a running back and a talent like Travis Etienne. This guy's going to go in the first round of the NFL draft.
Yeah,
there's no beating around the bush.
Yeah.
This guy is the best running back to ever step foot at Clemson. That's included with Spiller, Davis. He's blown by all.
He's the best
stats.
running back in the ACC as well.
He's the best running back in the history of the whole conference.
In the ACC. Yeah.
And he's one of the best college running backs ever. And he's getting 3.4 yards per carry this year because the O-line is so tragically off.
Now, if you look at it, it just looks, on first glance, they don't get a lot of push, right, up front.
I feel like a lot
But if you go back and watch a lot of games last year, 2019, they didn't get a lot of push, especially some against the better D-lines that they played. So when Syracuse had a better D-line, 2019, 2018, didn't get a lot of push. Texas A&M D-line didn't get a lot of push. LSU D-line didn't get a lot of push. No push against Ohio State. This has been something that's been trending a little bit for the last 2 years. I think
it's really ever since we lost Mitch Hyatt, the offensive line play has just gone down. And that's not indicative on his replacement or any of the guys we brought in. But
clearly not. Yeah,
that's just the truth of the situation.
And again, a lot of this too, as we talk about, this is something that I hear a lot of Clemson fans say, and it's something that we've kind of coined. We play it at the games over the loudspeaker that we too deep will show us. Because Jackson Carman having over 100 snaps against Notre Dame means you have nobody that can come in for him. That's not good. Anybody, I don't care how elite you are. You can put Penei Sewell out there. 100 snaps in a game against a really good D-line like Notre Dame.
It's going to take it out of you.
It's going to take it out of you. So I feel like Clemson really, they just need to go back to the drawing board, work on that depth, and I think they'll be fine. So we got a comment from Patrick Jasula. I'm sorry if I said your name wrong. Love the show. What do you need to see this week from the O-line to show that there's been improvement on the Notre Dame game? What I need to see is push. Just a simple push. Of course, Clemson schemes their offensive line to do a lot of different things. Split flow zone. They get a lot of help from the tight ends. But push. I just want to see interior domination. This is what okay, if you looked at the other side of the ball, you saw Notre Dame. Domination across the offensive line.
They smacked us.
Domination.
And you can't win football games, especially against elite teams like Notre Dame. If you're getting dominated in the trenches, I don't care if you're playing Akron. That's going to be a tough game to win because that's the most important. People love to say, you look at the flashy receivers. None of that can happen unless you have good pass protection.
That's right.
And you can't get the run game going if you have good run protection.
The
offensive line is the most important group of players on the football field. That's not even close.
Yeah.
Everything runs through them.
Offensive line and the D-line.
That's where you have to win that matchup. That is where you win football games, in the trenches. And we saw Clemson win the trenches in pretty much every game they played in their national championship years. And these last few years we saw against LSU, got smacked in the trenches.
The one time I don't think they won was 2016. I don't think they
against
won
Alabama?
that matchup.
You don't think they won that matchup?
I don't think they won that matchup, but they were good enough at the end.
They did not get dominated like they did against Notre Dame.
They played.
And as that game went on, the defensive line got progressively better. We were wearing Alabama out.
They did.
At the beginning of the game, you saw Bo Scarborough was breaking through for a lot of runs in that game early on, and they were winning their offensive line matches. But Clemson wore Alabama down. We didn't do that.
Right, and
we ran how many plays against Notre Dame, and we couldn't wear their guys down?
Well, that's another thing I wanted to talk about. I think again, schematically, there's some things that you want to do. Now, Dabo talked about this in the presser actually today, where I think, or one of these days, I don't know, I think it was today, but. He made sure to say that, he wants to improve the running game, and he knows that the running game needs to improve. But he says you win games by throwing the ball. And that's true. You have to have the ability to throw the ball. This is why LSU became transcendent. Them running the ball all the time was never going to get them a championship. But when they started throwing the ball, it really transcended the team. Now, if there is no balance, again, we've said this a few times on the show, nobody expected DJ Uiagalelei for 2 weeks in a row to come out and throw the ball 40-plus times. Yeah. You can't do that. If they've taken away Travis Etienne,
and what are you going to do? You can blame Tony, and you can say, you got to have more balance. Did you watch the same game we were playing?
Yeah.
Did you watch the game we were playing?
What can he do?
You could have had me out there at quarterback, and you had to throw the ball. We were getting stuffed up front every time.
That's the thing. That's where I want to see. I want to see Clemson just get better on first down conversions if you're going to run the ball. I don't want to see any first down in 2 yards. I'd like to see you start a first down, even if you have to do some things differently. Clemson doesn't use them as much window dressing anymore. You don't see a lot of motions. You don't see a lot of flow.
Just more creativity.
Just creativity. And at this point, I feel like Clark Lee, the defensive coordinator at Notre Dame, just keyed on tendencies.
Yeah.
That was it. Well, you've had a week off, and now you're going up against a defense that's troubled right now. Florida State would be, if Clemson's playing the way they should, would
Clemson
be
needs
good
to score
keep.
50.
They need to score 50, bottom line. And this is not even just because we want them to. This is something.
No, this is a big game as far as mentality, as far as showing what you got.
Right.
Like, you can't come out after a loss and stink it up like you did against Syracuse or BC.
That's right. You gotta
that
have to
just
put
keeps,
points up
because as we talked about this downward trend with Clemson, and it started at the Syracuse game, playing sort of crappy. You go down to BC, you have a major hiccup there, you almost lose the game, and then you lose to Notre Dame. Clemson cannot keep going down if they want to make the playoffs and win the national championship. You need a week like you had against Georgia Tech where you start trending up.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say, and we talked about this last episode. I felt like Notre Dame was starting to trend upwards. Remember, they had their low point against Louisville. That's when they started looking ahead to Clemson. They admitted it. They were saying, we're looking ahead to Clemson. We've had this game circled for 2 years. We're looking ahead. They started trending up. After Georgia Tech for Clemson, it just seems like they were going down. And I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened in the span of 1 week between Georgia Tech and Syracuse. Georgia Tech is vastly better than Syracuse. I don't know what happened. But I will say this. I feel like Clemson's starting to trend upward now. But that does not mean that Notre Dame is trending downward. They actually look pretty good, and we'll talk about that later on.
They did. They looked
pretty good against Boston College. But, it's not just the offense. I feel confident about the offense putting up points. It's more about the defense. And we know that the defense the last few weeks has been on the ropes. And we want to make sure this defense can get good. The only thing I will say this, it depends on who's playing quarterback for Florida State. Now, Jordan Travis has been out. He had a concussion protocol. He should be good for this game. He's listed as the starter for this week. However, they have gone the last few games with Tate Rodemaker and Chubba Purdy, two freshmen. Of course, Chubba Purdy is the younger brother of Brock Purdy at Iowa State. And some people are saying he's better. Right now, he's not. He's a freshman. Let me ask you a question. Did you watch any of the NC State game for Florida State? Did anybody out there watch any of the game?
I have some self-respect. So no.
Nobody watched that game.
If you're a neutral fan, you didn't watch that game.
If you looked at the score, you thought, hey, they didn't play that bad. I think it's 38-22, right?
What was the
or
score
something
of
like
that
that. I think 38-22, something like that. I don't know. I didn't really pay attention to any of that. I will say this, though. Watching the game, Florida State with the freshman quarterbacks do not look like Clemson with the freshman quarterback. And there's a reason. So Chubba Purdy did not come into the season as a early enrollee. Tate Rodemaker did. Chubba's best quarterback on that roster right now, but he doesn't know the offense. He does not know the Norvell offense, the Kenny Dillingham offense. Once he gets it in year 2, he'll be fine, but they are very vanilla. If they roll out with Tate Rodemaker or Chubba Purdy in this game, they will not, I'm saying it right now, Florida State will not score more than 14 points at all with this team, with these guys at quarterback. And it's not because they're not good. It's just the training wheels are secure on those guys.
I think you and I would both agree with, I think Clemson probably sees multiple quarterbacks in this game.
Well, they're going to have to. Yeah. Again, I don't know the full health status of Jordan Travis. Now, if Jordan Travis is in, he's one of those guys that's super mobile. He's like Ian Book on crack.
I hate dealing with
So it's one of those deals where, we over-pursued a lot against Notre Dame. That's something that we had an issue with. Ian Book was able to get out of it. Now, I will give credit to Ian Book. He is one of the slipperiest quarterbacks ever. It's not the best. By far.
He can escape.
But he can escape. Jordan Travis has another level to him. Much faster.
Runner.
Cannot throw the ball, though. So it's going to be one of those deals where
you're going to see multiple looks.
We'll see what happens. I feel like they're going to bring in those guys in situational football, maybe bring in Tate Rodemaker on a second and long or something. Chubba Purdy will be out there. But if they start with the young quarterbacks, I have a hard time believing they'll score more than 14. And then just in general, Can Kenny Dillingham, the offensive coordinator, of course, he runs kind of a West Coast offense that has spread principles to it, but can they score more than that in general? I just feel like they struggled to score that much against NC State. NC State took out a lot of their starters. The game was over, and they just came out and they just allowed them to do some things. Now, they're very predictable, too. There is a single play that they will do every third down. Ontario Wilson. Just get ready to hear the name Ontario Wilson on third down. He will run a short hook to the sticks every time. They throw the same play. 3 third downs in a row, they did this play. Now, it worked against NC State because Dave Doran doesn't know how to get his players mentally prepared for anything. But they're going to do the same thing, and they have a lot of issues. Of course, Tamorrion Terry opted out, left the team, whatever. I don't know what he did. Warren Thompson cannot catch a ball. He's like the Clemson version of Frank Ladson. And then you also have some other guys, of course. I just don't know where they are right now. But down to the brass tacks about this, I think Clemson is going to win this game just based off of the physicality, even with the younger plays that we have, and the mindset. I feel like Florida State's a little bit checked out. They've got a lot of young guys who they're trying to transition for next year, right? A lot of guys have already opted out. Some guys are just toxic. Corey Durden. Marvin Wilson, poor guy, is out for the year. He was going to be one of the top defensive tackles taken. I don't know that we're going to really see the improvement for this offensive line for Clemson based off of how they are going to prepare. So if we're talking about a prediction for this game, what would be yours?
I'm going to say 59-17 Tigers.
Okay, so you're right where I'm at. I've got 52-13. You remember that score. If you're a Clemson fan, you remember that score from 2013. But I feel like while Florida State could come out and play with some excitement, we're playing in Tallahassee. They've gotten embarrassed the last time. The last few games of Florida State has been like a 30-point game.
I always hate playing down there, though.
That's my point. So when they started out, do you remember in 2018? They went down there. They started out really hot against Clemson.
Yeah.
But then as time went on, Trevor Lawrence got settled, and they hit, I think it was Hamza Nasruddin, hit Trevor Lawrence, and he was like, okay, I got you. They put up 1,000,000 points on him. It was one of the worst losses they've ever had at home. This game actually has the potential to be worse, not only because Clemson is a better football team, but you're coming off a loss to Notre Dame and then a week to sit on it.
Yeah.
Knowing that you control your own destiny so long as you win. I've got Clemson winning this and covering. I got 52-13.
Yeah.
Folks out in the comment section, please get your comments in there. Let us know what your score prediction is. I'm interested in seeing what people's mindset is on this one. Normally, I always caution people to be like, hey, don't say 77-0. I feel like this first game after this.
And it needs to be. Like we were talking about, for morale, Clemson really needs a big win here.
And, honestly, Dabo's doing that nothing but no disrespect tour. No disrespect, but he's got to blow you out because that's just business. He loves Coach Norvell.
Listen,
he loves all these guys.
I wish Clemson would run it up more.
He's going to have to. I think now he's got to get his team back mentally on edge, ready to bite, ready to attack. These guys can't come in thinking, hey, we can just win this game. I want to see Clemson focused and ready to go. Normally, after a loss late in the season, we see this happen with Clemson, but if they can do that, they can continue on. Folks, if you'll do us a favor, too, if you're watching this on Facebook, hit the like button, share it, create a watch party, have fun with us, get in the comment section. If you're watching on YouTube, please do us a favor. Subscribe to the show if you like what you're watching. Hit that notification bell. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. We're like a quarter of that right now. I don't even know. We're trying, though. And then also, just let everybody know about 4th and 16 Sports. Try to get those guys out there. We're going to have some fun. The show's getting better and better. So we're going to move on to our next topic, something that I love talking about, and that is the breaking news of the fact that Will Muschamp got fired, finally, and South Carolina still sucks. So let's go ahead and talk about that. All right, so Will Muschamp got fired, 5th year at the school, 28-30 overall at South Carolina. Now, the strange thing about South Carolina is, or Will Muschamp, let's not talk about South Carolina. The strange thing about Will Muschamp is that he actually has a winning record as a head coach. But you don't see that because you just see all the crap that he's been through, right? But a lot of those losses, 14, I think, out of the last 20 games, he's lost. And, he had a lot of people at South Carolina happy, the 9-4 season, the second year, going on to beat Michigan, who was also equally overrated. How about that? Both coaches are probably going to be in the unemployment line this year.
Yeah.
But, again, you really don't see much of the success that he's had. Now, talk a little bit about Will Muschamp. Of course, he was the walk-on guy at Georgia, played safety, ended up making the team, being a captain, rah, 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 nice story, right? And he goes on and gets his job. He's at Auburn as a coordinator. He's at LSU, wins a national championship at LSU under Nick Saban, goes to Miami with Nick Saban, and they just kind of bolted. Goes back to Auburn. He's got a stint at Texas. No, he goes to Texas after that, I think. Yeah. And then after Texas, remember, he was supposed to be the head coach in waiting behind Mac Brown, and it didn't work out. They just kind of shipped him on somewhere else and got rid of Mac Brown. And then he was supposed to, and a lot of people don't know this. If you're a Clemson fan, I know we rag on Will Muschamp a lot. Will Muschamp was like number 2 in Clemson's coaching search in 2008.
That's
we
scary
wanted
to think
him.
about. Yeah, that's scary to think about.
That is really scary because we would be where we would. Oh my gosh, I don't even want to talk about it. But Will Muschamp found his feet, finally got the job at Florida, took over for Urban Meyer.
Wasn't half bad.
Wasn't half bad. Wasn't good either though.
Yeah.
And there's some reasons why he got fired there. Of course, I think he had a string of games. I think he lost to Missouri, and Missouri couldn't throw the ball at all. He lost to South Carolina, ironically, and I think that was the last game of him getting fired there. I think it was 2014. November 14th, I think he got fired like a couple of days ago, 6 years ago, which is funny. Anyway, he finds himself back at Auburn, 1 year as a defensive coordinator again, and then he gets this job at South Carolina. He was not South Carolina's first choice. He wasn't even a third choice. Remember, they wanted Lincoln Riley. They wanted Rich Rod, who turned him down, which is weird. I know. They wanted Tom Herman. You didn't get either of those guys. You ended up settling for Mr. William Muschamp. Now, South Carolina fans were super excited, and some of them were super bummed out because they thought that they were going to get a big-time head coach like Urban Meyer, like they think now. And, you know, a lot of that was predicated off of, hey, we had a couple of good years under Steve Spurrier. It took him 11 years to make them even relevant. But you got to remember that South Carolina has really never been good in their history. And I'm not just sitting up here ragging them on as a Clemson fan, but they really have not been good. A lot of that has to do with they just haven't had good coaching. The culture has never been changed, yet they laugh at a lot of things that Clemson do. I remember when Dabo was hired, South Carolina fans laughed at that. They say up until like 2013, remember, oh, he's a joke, he's a cheerleader, he's a terrible coach. We beat them every year. Now I bet you they wish they had a guy like Dabo Swinney. And there's a couple of guys like that, and we're going to talk about that tonight. So I don't know what's going to happen. Of course, a lot of players are taking it at heart. J.C. Horn and Israel Mukuamu, their top cornerbacks, both opted out. After giving up 159 points in the last 3 games. I think it's like, 257 points given this year. 159 points in the last 3 games and 708 yards to Ole Miss. Matt Corral. So I think it was time to go, especially when you have Will Muschamp supposed to be the defensive guru, right? I don't know that they keep Missouri this week if they play the game under 42 points.
No, and it's just embarrassing for the unit. Once again, like you could say, I'm being a homer as a Clemson. This is embarrassing that South Carolina's defense is that bad under a identity of a defensive head coach and a defense. You hired him to bring him in so your defense keep you in games, and like these last couple of weeks, it's just been an absolute embarrassment to the program. And now you got to pay him almost $15 million to ship him out of there. It's funny.
Well, and you know, a lot of that too is, I think it starts up top. Now,
yeah,
President Caslin, comes over from the Army, and he's a really hard-nosed, to-the-facts guy. I think if Harris Pastides was still there, they would probably still have William Muschamp as the head coach. But I think a lot of this actually comes down on Ray Tanner. Now, Ray Tanner has made some terrible decisions. I don't know that he is the AD for them to continue. I think head coach, yes, is important, but I think for South Carolina to ever get good, they need a AD that has a vision of how things are going to go. So I talk about a guy like Terry Don, who had a vision for Dabo. When he was gone, they brought in Dan Radakovich. Dan Radakovich was like, hey, Dabo, I'm on board with what you want. Let's do this. Let's make this happen, right? You see where we are, right? I feel like at South Carolina, they're not going to get a whole lot of support from their AD. And I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know what coach could be. But like you mentioned, they're going to be paying a buyout for Will Muschamp to be hanging out at his house for the next few months, right?
I mean,
but then you want to hire another coach.
Muschamp's mindset's got to be, it's like the Portland Trailblazers and then 1, 2, 3 Cancun. He's getting $13 million in the bank. Like he's sitting back, he's sipping a pina colada. He's like, hey,
he's having fun. Look,
I pulled off a heist.
Think about not having the stress of being the South Carolina head coach.
Yeah, like you get stress-free $15 million.
it's the same for Steve Spurrier. Think about the stress of not being South Carolina's head coach. And I don't want to rag him too much, but who was the last successful coach outside of Steve Spurrier in the last 20 years? You can go back. Even then, if you go back further, they're probably still more unsuccessful. But you got to think, even at Clemson, Jeff Scott, his dad, Brad Scott, was a head coach down there. They didn't win at all. Lou Holtz, everybody talks about Lou Holtz. I don't think they won more than 9 games with Lou Holtz in his career. Now, Lou Holtz came from Notre Dame, where he was a legend. Not so much at South Carolina. I can't think of any other coaches that were super successful.
It's just a historically mediocre program. I mean, I saw a comment on the show earlier, I think it was from Patrick, that said that they have 7 9-win seasons in the history of their program.
That's hilarious. Clemson's wow. Clemson has a chance to go to more playoffs than they had 9-win seasons.
Yeah.
So, I think Coach Morrison might have been I think he might have gotten them to like 9 or 10 wins before. I remember Joe Morrison. I think he was the guy that brought in the sandstorm or the dun, 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 I did that off key because that's kind of what their school is like right now. But I feel like if you're South Carolina, you have to be realistic. You have to be realistic. First and foremost, you're paying a $13+ million buyout to Will Muschamp to no longer have him be your head coach.
Oh Lord!
You're still paying staff that's on staff right now, which I would, if I'm the new head coach, I'm cleaning house. You also have to remember that you're going to be paying some other guy's contract if he's already a head coach somewhere. So you're paying his buyout. On top of that, what are you doing with all the guys that you've recruited? We're going to talk about Gunnar Stockton, too, 5-star quarterback from Georgia. How do you keep him now? But let's get into it. Let's talk about something that needs to happen. So on the short list of head coaches for South Carolina, the first name that pops up, everybody's super excited about this, is Liberty head coach, former Ole Miss head coach, Hugh Freeze. Now, Hugh Freeze, remember, it took him a while to get a job somewhere because they had to show clause him everywhere that he went, and Liberty finally settled on him because all that stuff that went down at Ole Miss. And I'm not judging the man's character. Say what you want about him. He's a winning head coach. He can win. Right now, I think Liberty is ridiculously good. They're undefeated. They're putting up points on everybody. They've beaten 2 ACC teams. About to go for 3 this weekend. I just don't know that you can afford his new contract buyout from Liberty, plus paying Will Muschamp, and then allowing him to build a staff, a winning staff. Not just coming in like Will Muschamp did and hiring Kurt Roper, a guy you knew was never going to make your offense be any good. He didn't make the offense any good at Florida with Will Muschamp. You have to shoot a little lower. So I'm going to go ahead and say Hugh Freeze, no. I wouldn't be surprised if they come up with the funds. At the same time, I don't know. Darla Moore was about to back out because she didn't get the president's job. And she owns the School of Business down there. It's huge. So I don't know that they can afford it. What do you think that they could find a way?
Listen, I think that I'm going to pose something also. I think Hugh Freeze can get a lot better of a job than the South Carolina job. I really do. I think even if they can't come up with the funds for him, I think that this offseason he will get a better job offer, a more attractive job offer than South Carolina.
Well, because there's going to be a few of them open. We're talking about that too. But
so even if the boosters come up with
I'm going to say no on Hugh Freeze.
I don't think he would take the job.
No. There's another guy that there's been talking about. Of course, he's a former Clemson assistant, former Alabama assistant, and that's Mr. Billy Napier, former Furman quarterback. Now, Billy Napier, in my mind, I joke about this all the time, would probably love to get this job so he can get back at Dabo for firing him in 2010. But he's made a name for himself all over college football. He's been an analyst at Alabama. He's been quality control. He's been offensive coordinator at Arizona State, which got him this job at Louisiana Lafayette, where he's been blowing everybody out except Coastal, which we'll talk about in a second too. Billy Napier actually might be one of the best candidates to get this job. Do I think he takes it? Maybe, because it is a vast upgrade money-wise from Louisiana Lafayette. He can go to South Carolina. Spot. It is, because we'll talk about that too. But I think he might be the best case scenario right now, just because I feel like he could build a staff because he has familiarity. He's been in the SEC. He's coached in the SEC, not as a head coach, but he's been, he's very familiar with it. He's got a lineage that can help him. He's coached under a lot of different really good coaches: Dabo Swinney, Nick Saban, Tommy Bowden. Good coach. I don't know. Anyway, I had to stop myself from saying great coach there. But there's a lot of experience for Billy Napier, and I think that he might work out. Will he take it? I don't know. So then if he doesn't take the job, the next person in line, in my opinion, the guy who I think they need to sell out for is Jamie Chadwell at Coastal Carolina.
I think this is who's going to get the job.
That is the home run. Right now he is on a audition because he is blowing out teams with Coastal Carolina. Now, he's served under Joe Moglia, who is the guru, the rich guy who never played football. He was a coach down at Coastal Carolina, but he ended up, assembling a really good staff. And, I feel like Jamie Chadwell is that guy that is young. He's smart.
Innovative hire.
That's
what you need. Like, that's what South Carolina needs so desperately is they need change in their program. They currently have a losing culture. They have a losing coach and a losing staff. And obviously you get Muschamp out of there. You need someone that's going to come in. He's going to get his guys. He's going to bring in a good staff, and he's going to change the program. They need to be fun. They're not fun.
They're not fun at all. And, if you look at the videos where – I'm not going to mention the video where Will Muschamp comes out there with some expletives, but they try to be fun. They're not.
Yeah. Shi Smith is the only fun person on that team.
And I don't want to go after Billy Napier because Billy Napier is known as one of the best recruiters in college football, period. But so was Will Muschamp. And look what that got you. It's about development of players. And they're not developing players outside of specific issues. Yeah.
You need the staff.
They're developing linemen, D-line, and cornerbacks. That's it. Nobody else at South Carolina has been developed. No quarterback. When was the last good quarterback at South Carolina?
Do you want to call Garcia good?
No. Connor Shaw was the next best quarterback that they've had, but I think that was more of a grit over talent thing.
We've got some nightmare fuel in the comments from Wade Brigham. He says, "What about Will Venables to South Carolina?" I think he meant Brent
or Brent Elliott.
Yeah.
No, how about Sean Elliott, another guy that's on their list, current head coach at Georgia State, a guy that they let go in 2015. After Steve Spurrier just let him go. I don't know that that's a guy you hire. Now, I think if you hire him in 2015, he might have a better traction. He had a hold over the locker room. The guys really liked him. But now that ship has sailed. There is no way that you get Sean Elliott to come back there. Some other guys that we can talk about that are on my short list, and I'll talk with them about you. And folks, get you in the comment section. I want to hear your opinion too. But there's some guys I think they could hire. They're long shots, but they're not going to do it. First person is I've heard, and we talked about this last year over in the podcast, if you listen to 4th and 16, and we've heard a lot of people say this on air. When they played Clemson, it was this way. Charlotte head coach Will Healy is about 34 years old. He's getting a lot of comparisons to Dabo Swinney, and they're saying he's a really nice guy. He's really energetic. He had that 1 year at Austin Peay where he was just blowing everybody's brains out. He even played Georgia tight up until like the third quarter. But I don't know that Will Healy has enough experience on the big time. You can't bring a coach like that into the SEC.
Also,
I don't know
you got to think from a program standpoint at South Carolina, you have to make a good hire. The boosters are already having to pay you got to pay him $13 million. They're going to make the safest hire possible. You can't bring in. What if you bring in this 34-year-old and he flops?
Well, you probably won't be paying him a lot. He's only making $755,000 right now at Charlotte. So I'm sure you could probably entice him with $900,000 to $1 million and say goodbye about it.
Do you think that Mike Bobo has a chance to keep the job?
We'll talk about this in a second. I want to get through these, and then I want to talk about my nightmare scenario. But of course, another coach out there that I've actually seen tossed around in some message boards, Dave Clawson from Wake Forest.
That actually could happen.
I like that one. It's never going to happen.
I think it could happen.
I don't think it would happen. I think they could lure him away. I don't think they would. I think the perception of Wake Forest is not good enough.
I do agree with that. I think that he's actually a good coach, and that he would take the job if offered, but I don't think South Carolina, he probably isn't on their radar. If that makes sense.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think it works.
And it sucks for him because he actually deserves that job.
Well, and then if you think about the South Carolina offense, this guy would absolutely he would revitalize it. It would be like a reincarnation.
Yeah.
This team would be so good offensively. We saw them this past week.
Granted, they have a 5-star QB coming in. They have talented wide receivers.
But you wouldn't know that because they only throw it to Shi Smith. I think the discrepancy, I think he's got 53 receptions. The next closest is 16. That's an issue.
Shi is really good.
He's a monster.
You see that
but he's
one-hand
not
grab
been-
he had against Ole Miss last week?
Yeah, but that's not good enough. We'll talk about this more. So another guy that's coming up that I actually personally like, I think this guy is he's underrated. A lot of people don't really know a whole lot about him, but he was able to take a Jacksonville State team, make them really good, make them relevant in the first year of FCS football. Then he turned around and went D1 to another school. Then that school just killed football, came back, brought him back again, and that's Bill Clark at University of Alabama, Birmingham, the UAB Blazers. Now, he's a defensive coordinator, and I think that South Carolina is probably going to shy away from a defensive coordinator just because of what they just had with Will Muschamp. But this guy is actually really good at coaching. He knows what to do. He's good with players. He's really good with recruiting. I feel like Alabama could use him if Pete Golding ever left for another job as a defensive coordinator. But that's another team. That's another coach that I honestly don't think South Carolina would give their time of day to because they're still thinking Urban Meyer, right? But another head coach could come in, Brian Harsin, Boise State. This guy knows what he's doing. He is a monster when it comes to scheming and being a pretty good head coach. I mean, he took over for Chris Peterson at Boise State, and there is no drop-off whatsoever. Again, another coach. I feel like South Carolina's going to look for guys who are like, yeah, he's been in the SEC before. He knows SEC football because it just means more. Clearly not. You've had a couple of guys who are not very good in the SEC.
We're having some calls for Jim Harbaugh to Carolina.
Jim Harbaugh is going to go to the Jets.
You think that Jim
Harbaugh is going to be the next head coach of the Jets?
You think he's going to get that job after being so mediocre?
Absolutely. They hired Adam Gase. What makes you think they wouldn't hire a guy like Jim Harbaugh? Plus, Jim Harbaugh had some success in the NFL, not in the college ranks so much. A lot of people want to give him credit for Stanford. He didn't build that team. So I don't. He's a NFL guy, just like Nick Saban's a college guy, not a pro guy. We'll see what happens. But
we also got a couple more good comments. Talk about Clark Lea from Notre
Clark
Dame.
Lea. Now, I feel like Clark Lea, again, another defensive coordinator. I don't see them going with defensive coordinator.
So you think that, and I'm personally in agreement with you, and this is what they need to do. I think they need to go after a more offense-oriented head
But
coach.
don't go so deep offensively that you lose your head, a.k.a. Mississippi State. I like Mike Leach. It's not working down there. He's not a fit. Neither was Joe Moorhead. But Joe Moorhead could be a fit. Now, he's the offensive coordinator at Oregon right now. I feel like he's a guy that's got.
You know what I really don't understand when touching on Leach? I don't understand why he doesn't take an OC job at a premier program.
Because he doesn't want to be the second in command.
I feel like he could take if he took an OC job, it would be so much
He hasn't
better.
been the second in command since he was at Iowa Wesleyan under Hal Mummy.
The problem,
with
him is they never get any recruits wherever he goes.
No, they don't, and it's hard to again. When you
he
have
doesn't
a
exactly
gimmick
go to
offense,
places that are easy to recruit either.
Well, yeah, and then you also have to have a place the expectations aren't to win the conference. You're never going to win the conference when you're Mississippi State. You're not beating Alabama, and if you get through Alabama, you're not beating Texas A&M. You're not beating LSU. You're not beating Auburn. It's just too hard. So I feel like they got a guy that can make them competitive, not championship level. Sounds a lot like a team on the SEC East, right? South Carolina. Just a few others. I've heard Steve Sarkisian from Alabama as the offensive coordinator. He's got head coaching position, but I feel like if you give him too much power, he'll do what he did at Washington and get in trouble, and he'll be out again. Not a good hire for me. Ultimately, they want a guy like Urban Meyer. They want a guy like Bob Stoops. Can you pull him away from the XFL or the Dallas Renegades or whatever?
Keep dreaming about Urban Meyer.
Keep dreaming about Urban Meyer. He's going to Texas when Tom Herman's fired because they could hire Tom Herman at South Carolina now. You could say, hey, but guess what Tom Herman wants? Money. You don't have that. So what this sounds like after all those coaches I just named, if you don't go for Billy Napier or Jamie Chadwell, the only logical explanation is keeping Mike Bobo. Now, a lot of people are going to hate that, but Mike Bobo, because they talked about, he was a Mountain West Conference coach who got fired just 11 months ago. I saw that comment somewhere. You know, he brought in Colin Hill, a guy from Colorado State who's from South Carolina. It is what it is. He's only thrown 6 touchdown passes this year, which is weird, even though they've scored like 40 points a couple of times.
That would be terrible.
You need to keep Mike Bobo.
No.
And you have to because Mike Bobo is going to keep Connor Shaw. Now, Connor Shaw has been moved into a quarterback coach position. You could possibly move him to offensive coordinator if he has a co-coordinator position designation.
So you think that's a good move for Carolina is to keep Mike Bobo? That's what
you
want to
know why you want to keep Mike Bobo.
I don't agree with this.
You lose Gunnar Stockton if you have nobody on that staff that recruited him. Now, Connor Shaw and his father Connor Shaw's dad is the head coach in Georgia over Gunnar Stockton. That's the connection with him and Mike Bobo.
Well, then it's more
you lose both of those guys.
It's more
no
important
Gunnar
you
Stockton.
keep Connor then.
You're not going to keep Connor as the offensive coordinator though if a new head coach comes in.
You don't think he's qualified for that
No,
job?
you know who would. No. Just because you're a great guy there and they love you doesn't mean they're going to bring you back. I mean, Brian Kelly has Tommy Reese up at Notre Dame because he played under him. But if you get a new guy, let's say a Jamie Chadwell, he's not going to be like, he's going to say, hey, I have my own staff. I want to go pick anybody else out there that I can have do this job. And it's not going to be Connor Shaw. He has no experience being the OC. Quarterback coach is a different thing. He'd be a passing game coordinator. We talk about how that is. But if you want to keep this 5-star, it's important. And I think it's important you keep him because now your depth is backwards. Luke Doty, everybody was like, oh, the high-flying quarterback from Myrtle Beach is now a wide receiver. DeKirian Joyner, who was getting no playing time whatsoever, should have went to Clemson because they wanted him as a wide receiver, and guess what you're playing now? He's getting no play. Ryan Helinski was supposed to be the savior. He is now a backup. He's thrown like 7 passes this year. Then you have Colin Hill, who is not very impressive at all. Your quarterback room is decimated now. So you need a 5-star guy because what do elite teams have? Teams that win national championships have quarterback.
Everyone but Alabama, you have to have a great quarterback.
But even then, their quarterbacks they're good, a.k.a. Mac Jones. Nobody knows it because all the other positions are super good. Now Mac Jones is showing you, hey, I'm better than all those Greg McElroys and A.J. McCarron. Significantly. They compared him to A.J. McCarron, and that's not fair. He's much better than him.
But also, have you seen the latest reports about how Jalen Waddle could be back for the college football playoff?
For what, though? They don't need him. They would bring him back for his own posterity. But if I'm him, I know that the NFL's coming and I'm going to be a first-round guy. I'm checking out.
You would sit?
I'm checking out. And it's not that I'm a bad teammate, but
so
why come back?
Are you sitting to not risk getting re-injured? Is that why you're sitting?
That is the number one reason, because if you get injured with everything being pushed back, especially college football players.
Oh, that's a nightmare for his draft stock.
Now you're going to have no time off to get prepared for the combine. There's zero chance I'm playing if I'm only going to be able to come back by the playoffs. There's just no chance in doing that. But, again, Bobo is going to give you that familiarity with this year. Of course, a lot of these guys are going to be gone next year. They're going to check out and probably transfer and probably go to the NFL. There's only going to be about 4 guys that can go NFL from this team. But I think Mike Bobo is probably the safest bet. I think Jamie Chadwell is the best bet. And I think that Billy Napier is going to still give you bang for your buck. So if South Carolina wants to get better, again, it's not about their coaching as much as it is their culture. And you have to bring in the right coach, the right AD. I still think Tanner needs to go because they've got talent in places there. But and they've got recruiting, they've got facilities, they've got all these things. But the one thing you're going to have to do is pay this guy well, because he's going to have to go up against Florida, Georgia, and then Texas A&M and Auburn every single year. And then Clemson. That's not even talking about Clemson. So you got built in at least 2 losses every single year. It's tough to win at South Carolina, and we'll see what happens going forward from there. But, folks, we're going to go ahead and move along. We're going to talk some more ACC football. We're going to spend just a little bit of time on these conference talks because we've got a couple of things to talk about. But, yeah, let's go ahead and talk about some ACC football right now. First thing I want to talk about, Fax. Agree or disagree? North Carolina might be the best ACC offense.
Oh, 100% agree.
But they might be the worst ACC defense.
Also agree. Listen, me and you were high on North Carolina coming into the season, and a lot of the stuff we said is completely correct. Mm-hmm. Their offense is the best in the ACC. It's one of the tops in the nation. We didn't see this defense being this much of a train wreck. I don't even know how a defense is so bad. Yeah. I really don't.
Honestly, it feels like last year was kind of the anomaly. I'm not saying they don't have good coaches, because I actually think Coach Monken's actually really good at coaching the defense. The only problem I have is that I feel like whereas they had some upperclassmen last year and they were able to do a lot of different things, they were running exotic formations and setups, doing a lot of different things that really, this is what I thought caught Clemson off guard last year in the game, because they were using so many exotic things. But you had upperclassmen that could catch on to these things. Now they're playing with a lot of youth, a lot of areas. Their D-line is not as strong as it has been before. You remember you lose a couple of Strobridge went to NFL. I think the other guy went to NFL too. You don't have a strong as D-line anymore. I think people have figured out Chaz Surratt at the middle linebacker position. Your secondary is pretty good, but bringing in Patrice Renee again, he's not fully healthy. I just don't think it works out. I think their defense is what's hamstringing their offense. However, if you let this offense score, good night. Yeah. I mean, they can score 50 at will.
I think they've scored 35+ on almost every game this season.
Almost every game, but they also give up that much.
You want to know their lowest scoring game of the season? It was Florida State.
It was. What was that? Like, what did they score?
30. It was 35-31 final.
Something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, it doesn't – and they got – the problem with North Carolina's offense is it takes them forever to get started. It takes them about 2.5 quarters to get that offense started. And once it does start, they start lighting everybody up. I think Sam Howell had like 500+ yards passing, 6 touchdowns. The guy's phenomenal. But they showed you on the other side that they made Sam Hartman look just as good as he did. I mean, he had almost like 490-something yards passing. It's one of those deals where if North Carolina is going to be competitive, they're going to have to do it. And North Carolina is going to play Notre Dame this weekend. I don't know how to pick that game because Notre Dame is one of those teams that they are so good at every area. Again, they're not elite anywhere, but they're really good everywhere. I don't know that North Carolina can keep up. I think they're going to make Ian Book have another one of those career games.
Yeah, and it should be interesting to watch. I think North Carolina actually does have a chance of winning this game. And
of course they do. Remember, we called this.
Man.
But we don't want it to happen. If you're a Clemson fan, you do not want it to happen.
I don't want it to happen at this point. You need Notre Dame to win this game if you're a Clemson fan. So hopefully Kyron Williams having another good game of the running backs. But I think they should be able to run the ball all day on North Carolina.
Yeah, they will. They will. And it depends. And that's the thing. If Kyron Williams, of course, he got a little banged up against Boston College, but it didn't matter because they were able to roll out Chris Tyree, Sebo Flemister, Jafar Armstrong. Didn't matter. They could do whatever they wanted to do. And Ben Skoranek looked like the best receiver in the ACC in this game. He was mossing guys, sunning them left and right. So we'll see what happens. But speaking of Notre Dame, they did not break a sweat against Boston College. Of course, Boston College has Phil Dracovic transfer from Notre Dame. Everybody suspected a little bad blood between those guys. You know, it was a little rivalry between Ian Book and Phil. And, Ian Book did the Ian Book thing again and looked really good. We've been critical of the guy, but
he's stepping up this year.
He's stepping up, and he is the reason why this team is better.
Yeah.
If they didn't have good quarterback play, I don't think
better. He's been a lot better this year,
and he's steady. Yeah. So, again, going into North Carolina, of course, they travel to Chapel Hill. I think if they can just stay the course, not give up mentally. They have a superior offensive and defensive line. They're going to win that matchup every time. I think they win this game. I think it's going to be a shootout for sure, but I think Notre Dame's going to be good. And then lastly in the ACC, we're going to talk about something that's important here because we talked about Hugh Freeze and Liberty. If Liberty beats NC State this weekend, I think that would be 3 for 3 on ACC teams. We got to drop somebody and put them in. Somebody in the ACC's got to go. I mean, we got to put Liberty in the ACC. Who would you say would be the first to drop? I'm going to go ahead and say Syracuse, but it hurts from basketball standpoint. I can't drop them. Who would we drop in favor of the Liberty Flames?
I have no idea.
Oh man, that's hard. But they beat everybody. They've beaten Virginia Tech so far. They beat Syracuse badly. If they go ahead and I think they might have beaten someone else in the ACC. I don't know. But they're doing a really good job, and it's going to be one of those deals where if that kick out Wake, Drew says kick out Wake. I like Wake. I have a soft spot for Wake.
They're kind of too storied in basketball.
Yeah, but they haven't been storied lately. But they're working on it. But I just feel like, again, that's another hit into basketball. You can't get rid of Pitt.
Every team's too good in basketball.
Can't get. That's why we had them joined. You definitely can't get rid of Duke. Just bring in Notre Dame and then also bring in Liberty, and then we got it set. We're good to go. But again, I think ACC is going to be status quo this week. The teams that are supposed to win are going to win. I don't know about that. We're going to go ahead and talk about some SEC football right now because we know we love that SEC football talk because it just means more. I don't know what they're going to do because all of their games are getting canceled.
Yeah, there was like 4 or 5 canceled last week, and like we're talking about, there's probably going to be more cancellations this week.
Yeah, well, a lot of the teams that are in contention are getting canceled. So we all, we spent all that time. Canceled. Yeah, Alabama got canceled. We keep talking about Texas A&M, gig 'em. They got canceled again. It's going to hurt them bad. And I know they're trying to make up. Of course, they scheduled some weeks between, I think, the 10th and the 19th to be able to make up some of those games. But that means you're not going to get any breaks before the SEC championship. Now, I'm not saying that Alabama needs one. Who's going to beat Alabama? Nobody. But
maybe Florida?
Maybe Florida, if Florida catches on a lull. But I just don't feel like it matters. But, having all these cancellations, and then now you're having, some schools deal with a lot of COVID stuff, like Missouri right now. They got a lot of players out. I think they only have 56 players on scholarship right now going into South Carolina. Let's say South Carolina loses this game and then also contracts COVID from them. You got LSU over there who's saying, hey, we too sick this year, instead of saying like, oh, yeah, go Tigers. Now they're like, oh, we can't play. We need to opt out because first of all, we suck. And second of all, we got all our players sick. So, I mean, it's just one of those things where I don't know how the SEC is going to come back from a lot of these cancellations. Mostly postponements. Has there been any cancellations?
This is ruining the Texas A&M playoff chances.
It actually is, yeah. It really is.
And while people are getting sick, I'm actually saving my eyes because I don't have to watch Kellen Mond play football.
Oh, my gosh. You're coming after him, man. Look, I think it's already going to be a tough. I think Texas A&M.
It's a tall order for them.
Yeah,
to get
and I think legitimately this year,
they're
being
actually
unbiased,
pretty good.
They're pretty good.
They're pretty
dang good.
This is their best team in recent memory. So
yes,
it really does suck for them that
the only problem
all
that
these cancellations.
The worst thing they could ever do is have Florida beat them because they have zero chance of getting in. Florida will get in a chance. Alabama's going to get in. Clemson. I imagine Ohio State. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit later. Drew, you hear that in the back? Now they're getting in, but they could have a scare this weekend.
You think Indiana's got a chance?
We'll talk about it. The spread says no.
Yeah.
Will anybody in the SEC actually beat Alabama? So I teased about this in the first. Can anybody beat Alabama?
No.
And the reason why I say this is because I feel like you said something perfect last episode. I feel like Alabama's the LSU of this year, where their offense was humming the entire time. Their defense,
it's getting better.
Slow grower. But now they're starting to hit on all cylinders. And
I'm telling you, man.
I don't know that there's anyone. They've already knocked off Texas A&M. There's nobody on the SEC West that I believe is going to be able to beat them. I don't see Auburn doing it this year. Mississippi State none of those teams.
Just speaking from an objective standpoint, like I know we all hate Alabama, we're Clemson fans. This is the best team in the country. I think they're better than Ohio State at this point. I really do.
Yeah, I would go ahead and say
and
that too.
They would be, if you're just telling me right now, I think they would beat Clemson.
Yeah, this team right now definitely would be Clemson. If Notre Dame could beat Clemson right now,
I'm telling you, Alabama would hang 55 on Clemson.
Well, we talked about this,
and it sucks to say.
Well, we talked about this, but that's the thing. If Clemson gets right, if they do the things right, they're putting 55 on them too.
On Alabama too, yeah. I really hope. Like I know everyone hates it. Everyone's like, Clemson, Alabama is boring, every year.
No, it's not. This makes it a great year.
This would be a fantastic year for a Clemson Alabama matchup. I feel like it would be a great game.
Absolutely. But I just don't know that anybody can beat them.
It would kind of pain me to see Mac Jones light up Clemson though, because I would be like that Alonzo.
Rooting for it.
I'd be like
fantasy football,
that Alonzo Mourning gif where he's like, well, but I mean, hey.
I don't know. I got a question for you though. Last one for the SEC talk. So Will Muschamp got fired, and we spent all that time talking about Will Muschamp. Answer me one question. How does Derek Mason still have a job?
I have no idea.
He is probably the worst SEC coach. He's never won, and I understand the academics of SEC when you're a Vanderbilt head coach. I get it. James Franklin was pretty successful there. I don't know, and it feels like Derek Mason he reminds me of Will Muschamp at a lesser school. Defensive coordinator, supposed to be this storied guy, just getting lit up.
It's okay.
Team's not very good.
They're a basketball school that's not good at basketball.
Well, but hey, that baseball team
is good. They're a baseball school.
They have a choice baseball team.
They do.
But so that makes me wonder, again, we're talking about all these coaches getting fired. Derek Mason's got to go somewhere. Somebody will get a job at Vanderbilt. What if it's Will Muschamp? They just switch jobs.
That would be funny.
It would be perfect.
Will Muschamp at Vandy would be not exactly a culture match, I don't think.
Nah, he's not. Have you seen some of the gifs out there of Will Muschamp? And it's hilarious. But I'm just wondering though. I will say I think that was a question on here somewhere. Someone asked this. They said, "Where do you see Will Muschamp ending up?" I don't think he coaches anywhere this year. For 2021. I think he takes a year off.
Yeah, he can get a job.
Looks at the market. He might take a coordinator job somewhere. It's going to be somewhere probably bigger.
It'll be like a Big 12.
Yeah, he doesn't take small jobs. And we've seen this. His career, he does not take small jobs.
He needs the check.
Yeah, he needs that check. But I don't know where he ends up. But let's go ahead and talk about some Big Ten talk now. This is going to be interesting because there's a lot of storylines in the Big Ten, a lot of stuff that we got wrong, a lot of stuff that I'm happy to talk about. So, Indiana. Let's talk about Indiana. First top 10 in a long time, really long time. They're undefeated. Just throttled Michigan State.
The spread is 21.
The spread is 21.
The spread is 21.
For a top 10 matchup.
That just really shows.
That is, to me, is showing.
I think it's fair. I really do think it's fair.
Do you really think it's fair?
Yeah, and I think they're going to beat them by 21.
I don't see that happening at all. I don't see it.
Listen,
let's talk through this.
I love Indiana. Okay, I love Michael Penix Jr. And I think their defense is pretty solid. I think this is a statement game for the Ohio State Buckeyes, and I think they're going to come on. I think they're going to throttle them.
Their statement game was supposed to be Penn State. Penn State's trash. So I think right now, Ohio State wins this game without a doubt. 21 points, not a chance.
Listen,
I see this game as Ohio State winning by maybe 10 to 14 points. And it's not an indictment on Ohio State. It's more of Indiana giving them a run for their money. Now, when Kevin Wilson, who was actually the offensive coordinator at Indiana, at Ohio State, who was the head coach of Indiana, gave Ohio State a run for their money a couple years. Now Tom Allen's there. He's got this team fired up. They're super excited. All this stuff is happening up in Bloomington. I'm telling you, listen to me. Do not take that spread. Do not take it. This team is playing their destiny right now.
I trust Las Vegas.
This is the last time they're going to have a chance.
I trust Las Vegas. And the line would not be at that if they didn't think it was fair. Vegas does not get ripped off. They don't. It doesn't happen.
I'm just telling you, man.
They've got all those big shiny buildings out there for a reason. My dad says it all the time. They make so much money week in, week out.
I hear you.
The line would not be that high if they did not think it was going to be in that range.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. We talked about this already. Ohio State's due for one of those games that's kind of like a letdown. Who is going to let them down after this?
Listen, I think that you might say that like
nobody
on paper, but like you have to think, why would Vegas have it at 21 points if it's a 3 versus 9 matchup?
Because they want you to take that. That's the same thing as Clemson and Boston College. No. It's the same thing as Clemson and Syracuse. They want you to take that line. They're giving you a 21.5 on a top 10 matchup.
I would even wager that they win by 28. I don't think it's going to be close.
A top 10 matchup. I think 21 points.
I think Indiana is outperforming the ranking.
Maybe. We talked about that. I agree with this. But I think for them, this is their Super Bowl. This is their last chance.
They're playing at Ohio State, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't care. This is their last chance to go out there and show, hey, we're a decent quality team.
So you're taking Indiana to go into Ohio State.
Yes.
And Ohio State's the biggest game of the year. Did Ohio State have a bye week last week, if I'm not mistaken?
No, they had their game postponed, completely canceled against Maryland.
Against Maryland.
And if we thought Maryland was going to put points on them, you think Indiana's built better than Maryland right now. They have a defense. They have an offense that's steady and consistent. Freifogel right now looks like one of the best receivers in the country. And we talked about this before. Shaun Wade is a little bit of a liability. On that matchup, I might take Freifogel.
I'm going to take Ohio State by a score of 52-24.
I'll take it. Whatever. I'm telling you, we'll come back next week.
The win and I will stake my reputation on this. Ohio State is going to kill them.
Okay.
And I like Indiana. I hope Indiana wins. I hope I'm coming on here next Tuesday and I'm like, I'm a moron. That's what I hope. But
look, I'm not taking Indiana to win. If Indiana wins, that throws a wrench in all of this because Ohio State
that would be bad for Clemson
to get back into.
That would be bad for Clemson if Indiana won.
It wouldn't
you don't think so?
Because Clemson don't have a chance to go play the number 2 team in the country.
But what if Ohio State?
If Ohio State loses, they drop it in 4 because Clemson would move up.
So you think Clemson will get the 2 and 3, but they're going to get that anyways.
Yeah, they're going to. That's what I'm saying. They're going to be in 3. I think the highest that Clemson can go is there would be 2. They're not jumping Alabama.
It's not happening.
It's not happening. I think the highest Clemson can go is Alabama because I feel like if Ohio State loses to anybody, which is a possibility, if Wisconsin keeps playing as good as they do, they get into the conference championship game. Who knows? Who knows, though, with the eligibility because all these games keep getting canceled as opposed to the SEC's postponement. The Big Ten is actually just going ahead and canceling this game, so that hurts a little bit. And plus, again, if Ohio State, who's already playing a shortened schedule, has another game, so they have one game that they couldn't play and will not make up, and then loses to Indiana, a top 10 team, then we'll see what happens. But I think Ohio State's a great team. I think they're one of the top 3 teams for a reason. I just feel like this might be a little bit of a mental trap game, and I feel like Indiana can sneak up on them a little bit. Next thing I want to talk about, though, something that I want to go ahead and say and stake my reputation on because I was an idiot for saying it. I said Joe Milton is going to save Jim Harbaugh's job.
Good Lord.
They are trash.
I don't understand.
How does he still have a job?
What happened after week 1? Like, he looks so good. Their offense looks so good.
Paper Tigers. They were playing Minnesota, a team who's also trash right now. They go up against 2 teams that everybody was under. Look, there's
how did
no
they
excuse
not
for
beat
Michigan
State?
I don't know.
How did they not
That
win
was
that
a mental
game?
lapse.
That's a completely.
And that's on Jim
terrible
Harbaugh too, because he's always talking about how Michigan State is the little brother. That's on him. But how he still has a job, I don't know. He's always been able to get good, pretty good running backs up at Michigan. But quarterback play has been awful. Joe Milton started the season very hot, but he's very up and down. He still has flashes of brilliance. But for the most part, for a guy who's been there forever, he should be on track with figuring it out. Now, again, Shea Patterson, Brandon Peters, you've had even Dylan McCaffrey. You've had quarterbacks. They're not good. And again, what do we talk about with South Carolina? What do we talk about with national championship quality teams? To be national championship quality, you got to have a national championship quality quarterback. They haven't had it in his tenure. They're not going to have it in his tenure. There's nobody in the Big Ten right now outside of Rutgers that I can say without a doubt Michigan is in a better position than and will be better in general and is better in general. I can't definitively say that they're better than anybody that they're going to play for the rest of the year. And that's a problem because Michigan is a blue blood. I mean, the bluest of blood. And they are not successful. So I can't go with them. I don't know what's happening. I made a big mistake saying that. So I'm on that. Michigan's trash. Super happy about it. A couple years ago, they were trying to tell me, Michigan would put – remember, this was a couple years ago. They were like, Michigan would put 60 on Clemson. And then they turned around, and then Ohio State put like 60-something points on them the next week. Get out of here, man. Last thing, Wisconsin playing pretty good. That's exactly what the Big Ten needs right now because that means there are competitors.
Wisconsin's a good football team.
We talked about
Mertz is really good.
He is fantastic, and I think the reason why I picked Michigan to win this game is because I thought, hey, with Wisconsin having so much time off, they're just not going to be in football shape. That's wrong. Those guys came out look great, and I will wager to say this on show right now. I think Wisconsin is a better football team without Jonathan Taylor. Because when Jonathan Taylor was there, I think you already knew you had Jack Cohn. You're probably going to hand the ball off. You had Cephas at receiver, but that was about it. You didn't really do much at all. But now that they're starting to open the offense up, Graham Mertz can throw the ball. Nakia Watson's really good. Groshek's really good. You have all these people that can play football. I feel like they're a more well-rounded team now. The defense has always been solid.
That big O-line's going to win them in the trenches, too.
Outside of Indiana, this is the only team in the Big Ten that can beat Ohio State. That's it.
Are we going to talk about how Penn State is 0-4?
Let's talk about how they're 0-4, and that makes me feel happy.
Is Franklin on the hot seat?
I think they'll give him a year because he had so many guys. Of course, you lost the quarterback of your defense, Micah Parsons. And then you also lose Journey Brown to a devastating
really
heart
sad.
condition. And that makes me feel bad.
Really sad.
I love that kid. I thought he was a great running back, and now he's not going to be able to play anymore. That hurts. That definitely hurts a team. And then you have Will Levis basically beating out Sean Clifford. No,
he's not bad.
He's not bad. He wasn't bad against Ohio State last year. He was giving them life. Again, I just feel like there are certain things that they're going to give him a pass for. And Penn State has been pretty good under James Franklin. But I feel like if he has another year, I don't remember the last time that Penn State opened 0-4. Somebody looked that up for me in the comments. But I feel like they're going to give him a pass for this. If he has another bad season next year, then maybe his seat is starting to heat up. But I don't know. They'll do something dumb and hire Bill O'Brien back or something. And all that dumb stuff. Let's go ahead and move on to the Pac-12. Spend a little time talking some Pac-12 football. My favorite thing to talk about with Pac-12 is the fact that, and I know you're going to be like, oh, man, Oregon is the best team in the Pac-12, and it is obvious. It is beyond obvious. The Ducks have just another level. I think they started to play more sound football defensively. I know that over the years, the problem with Oregon is that they've always had the high-flying, innovative offenses, never really had a solid defense. And now I'm not saying their defense is good. I think it's solid. Of course, you don't have to be good in the Pac-12 because what defense outside of Cal's was good? And now we're questioning that. So
I think that Oregon could get shocked this week. And I said this to you before the show.
I don't see it.
I think the Cal's defense, just on paper and talent-wise, is significantly better than Oregon's. And DTR is playing really good football right now, and he's really tough to guard. I mean, we saw they put up like 70 points in a game last year. UCLA's defense.
You're taking Chip Kelly, a team going back to Oregon.
No, I'm taking DTR.
Yeah, you only go as far as your head coach.
It's a revenge. You got to take the revenge game narrative in there.
Look,
I don't think they'll win, but I think the spread's like 15.5. That seems a little high.
I didn't say anything about the spread. I said that Oregon is the best team in the conference. Clemson doesn't always hit the spread, obviously.
Oh, I'm just talking
about
they're the best
team in the conference.
They're the best team in the conference because I think we're going to talk about this more later about the disaster going down at USC right now. Another 2-0.
So let's go ahead and get into that now. Clay Helton's job is only safe.
If he didn't have if he did not have a top 5 quarterback in the country, Clay Helton would be sitting on a couch right now.
Yeah,
Keaton Slovis is so good.
He is unbelievable. He is, in my opinion, he is definitely a top 5 quarterback.
And dude, like
without him,
they showed a graphic on CBS. It's his fourth quarter stats like this year.
He is clutch.
He's thrown for 4 touchdowns in the fourth quarter already this year in 2 games. He's led them back in both games and has 2 game-winning touchdowns. You know what happened this weekend? They go down and they score a touchdown with 2 minutes left, and everyone's like, that's another game-winning drive for Keaton Slovis. They go get scored on, and then he goes down and he does it again.
Yeah.
He's unbelievable. Unbelievable player.
Yeah. Oh, I see a comment over here. Christopher O'Connor. Penn State started 0-4 in 2001. Starting quarterback was Zach Mills. Zach Mills is one of the worst quarterbacks in Penn State history.
Yikes.
Outside of Matt McGloin. Matt McGloin was only bad because, they were going through the death penalty kind of thing, and they had all those they were playing with a skeleton crew, but Zach Mills is definitely really, really bad. Last thing we're going to talk about in the Pac-12 is with all this happening, of course, the season's already scheduled to be shorter than all the Big 12, the Big 10, Pac-12, everything. Do you see a playoff path for the Pac-12?
No, they don't play enough games.
I don't see it. I just don't think they have enough. But here's my question, though. With all the cancellations, not postponements, cancellations of the Big Ten, do you think that there's a chance that they might be able to sneak in? Like Oregon goes undefeated.
Or the Pac-12?
The Pac-12.
It depends on – I think they need help, which sucks because I think Oregon's actually really good this year.
They are, but they don't have – I said this last show. They're not going to play in anybody ranked until the end.
It really does because they don't – they can't play their full schedule. So Oregon's going to end up playing a bunch of bum teams the rest of the way, and then in the title game they'll play like USC or something.
Yeah.
And they'll win that game. But then you look at it, you're like, oh, they're 8-0?
And do we really want to put them against Alabama at number 1? No.
And that answer that's going to be no.
There's a lot of teams
One
right now
loss
would not put
Clemson
against
or
Alabama.
Notre Dame will get in under the undefeated
Absolutely.
8-game Pac-12 reducted season
Absolutely.
champion.
And then again, that's contingent on what happens with the Big 12, Big 10. Again, we talked about how
what Oregon really needed, they needed Clemson to beat Notre Dame in that game.
Well, yeah, because then
then Notre Dame would have been at 2 losses. Then they would need Texas A&M to drop another.
Well, let's not even say this. Notre Dame at losing to Clemson in South Bend doesn't guarantee them a shot to get back to the ACC championship. Clemson, they're going to the ACC championship. I do not see Florida State, Pitt, or Virginia Tech beating Clemson. That's not happening.
They really needed them to win that game, and Clemson let Oregon down.
Yes. If they had lost to Clemson in this game against South Bend a couple weeks ago,
lost again or lost to UNC,
they absolutely had to beat UNC. That game would have been critical. I think now they actually might have a position where they could lose that game and still
they would still go to the ACC championship and they could still win that game.
They can still win it if they beat Clemson in the ACC championship again.
Well, wait,
still getting in.
Things get weird because technically Miami only has 1 loss still, which is just weird.
But I don't think it would matter because Clemson won the head-to-head
over Miami.
So and remember, there's no divisions. So
yeah, it's just top 2.
It's top 2.
So what would be the tiebreaker differential to determine what happened against Notre Dame and Miami?
I think Notre Dame would have the better record.
They would both have 1 loss in that scenario, though.
They both lost to Clemson.
Then what? Like, do you know what the next tiebreaker is?
I wouldn't know. I think the only way we have to be able to do is who. I don't know. That's crazy.
Yeah.
We've had a tiebreaker before for the Coastal because that division is trash. I actually like having no divisions. It makes it more competitive. Everybody has a chance.
They need to do this.
Yeah, I think it's great, but I don't know. I just find it hard for the Big 12 to get in. I mean, Pac-12. Well, let's go ahead and talk about the Big 12 now too because
they're in
the same position. But this game, there's one game that rides on this, and we have been talking about this all year, and that is the Red River rivalry. You got Oklahoma versus Oklahoma State.
I think Oklahoma State's going to win.
Okay, but this is what we talked about. We already said this. We both think that Oklahoma State's going to win this first matchup.
Yeah.
But you think Oklahoma's going to win the second matchup.
I said that at the beginning of the year.
Here's the problem with that. If that happens, nobody in the Big 12 goes. If Oklahoma State can beat Oklahoma and go and win the Big 12, they still have an outside shot at getting in. They still have an outside shot. I don't care what anybody says. A one-loss team to, at one point, a ranked Kansas State. If you can go and get that win, I think that they might have an outside shot. I think they would be behind Texas A&M still in that situation. They'd be behind Cincinnati, BYU.
So you're saying if Oklahoma State won out?
If they went out for the rest of the way, and they do it with the eye test, because, that's still going to be a criteria.
I think they would have a better chance than Texas A&M to get in. I think they would be a champion of the conference, in my opinion, would be above the hierarchy of the Texas A&M, who didn't even make the conference championship.
That's true,
game.
But we saw that before with USC and Penn State and Alabama. And Alabama didn't play in their conference championship game. So I don't know, but this game is going to be important. Of course, it's for the supremacy of the Big 12. I think this has implications beyond just, hey, this team can get in the playoffs or not. We're looking at maybe the changing of tide in the Big 12. Of course, Texas is probably about to fire Tom Herman and hire Urban Meyer. So it is what it is. Oklahoma has been ruling that conference for the last few years. For honestly, in the long run, the entire time of the Big 12. They have a big share of the Big 12. But now Oklahoma State's starting to get better. They're starting to creep up. And I feel like if you can win this game and then win out.
This is big for the future of their program.
This is big for the future of the program. Now Gundy can put that, hey, we are the Big 12 champions. We can go forward with this as recruiting and getting the best team in the Big 12.
Helps recruiting in Oklahoma.
I don't know. I think this might change the tide if they can win this game. But
they need to win.
These games have been so annoying.
It's always a shootout.
It's always annoying because, we saw it with Mason Rudolph. He had a shot. They were getting there, and then something would happen, and Oklahoma would win it with Baker and Kyler.
I still remember that one game with Baker where they put up like 60. It was like 63-55 or something. That game was incredible. Yeah. This game's going to be entertaining, and I know that we bash the Big 12 a lot on here. I find myself watching a lot of Big 12 football because it's fun.
I love Big 12 football. I love it. I love the offense. And again, I'm certified in air raid, so I love watching all of the air raid based teams. It's fun. But I think that, again, I don't know about the playoffs, but I feel like this changes the supremacy for them going forward. Of course, they'll bring back a lot of people too coming next year. I think they have a good shot of taking this over. Here's another question for you. Which Big 12 coach will get fired or leave for another job first? Of course, Matt Campbell, Iowa State's on a long list. He's on South Carolina's list.
I think Tom Herman's going to get fired.
I think he's gone.
Yeah, I think Tom Herman's going to get fired.
Yep. You got to think about a lot of the other guys, too. I think Gary Patterson might get a shot at another coaching job somewhere else. He was passed over for Tennessee, which is dumb. He was passed over for a lot of different places. I think he'll get a shot to get, that coaching gig somewhere else, like Gary Patterson. Again, I talked about Matt Campbell, young and upcoming guy. If he can leverage some of those wins that he's had at Iowa State, maybe he can go. Lincoln Riley might go pro. I don't know. Everybody says no, but
Cowboys.
Nobody thought that Cliff Kingsbury was going to do it.
Yeah.
Mike Gundy's not leaving.
I don't think Cliff's a very good coach, just on a side note. I know what they're doing this year.
He's playing, again, I feel like the players are playing outside of his coaching ability. They're playing above his coaching ability. I don't think it's particularly.
How about that hop catch, though?
It's Clemson products, man. You just put a Clemson receiver out there, he's going to catch it. That's all I got to say about that.
Yeah.
But I feel like the Pac-12 is going to be the first conference to get poached for head coaches. Yeah. A lot of the bigger jobs are not going to go for G5 schools. Those guys aren't getting a job. Kalani Sitake over at BYU is doing a great job. He's not going to get the Texas job. He's not going to get South Carolina's job. You see what I'm saying? I feel like it's going to be a bigger conference, and there's going to be lateral moves between the head coaches and the coordinators. And I feel like Big 12 is the perfect one to poach from. A lot of them are new head coaches, though. Matt Wells, only in the second year at Texas Tech. Like I said, Gary Patterson's been there forever, but it's probably time for him to go. Somebody else needs to call him up. I don't know. I think they're going to have a lot of guys change and all that stuff. But, folks, we are at the time to pick some games for the night. All right, so stick with us. We're going to lead you in the right direction. We have been pretty accurate throughout the season making picks. Just don't pick Michigan again. We're going to talk about some games around the country, get our opinions, and get our score. We're going to do it the over-unders and against the spread. So stick with us. I want to see your comments to see what you guys think about some of these picks. But we're going to start off with a game. I don't like that one. I don't like that one either. Let's start out with the one that you talked about was going to be the upset. Chip Kelly is going to go to Outson Stadium, where he used to coach, and coach the UCLA Bruins. Line on this game is 13.5. Oregon spread is 66.5. Who you taking and why? Give me briefs.
Taking UCLA not to win, to cover. Okay. To cover. I think Oregon's going to win a close game here. Yeah. I think maybe you get in that 7 to 10 point range. Give me the Ducks. Say 35-28.
I'm going Ducks with the cover, and I don't think it's an indictment on UCLA. I just feel like UCLA coming down after one game to play a Duck team who is on a mission right now. Again, you got to talk about the offense. Defense is clicking. Coach Cristobal knows how to do it. He's been at Alabama before. He knows that kind of brand of football. I think they're too physical for them, and I think Tyler Shuff in the offense is too much. I'm going to say Oregon definitely covers, and I'm going to say the over-under is definitely the over. I can see.
So you think Oregon's going to put up a lot of points?
I think Oregon's going to put up a lot of points, but I also see UCLA
defense didn't
too.
Look bad last week.
I was going to say I think UCLA's offense is going to still probably play well. I don't think they're going to score like 30 points. I could see them scoring 21 to 24. Mm-hmm. I could definitely see that. Chip Kelly's got familiarity.
I'm
with
rooting
Oregon,
for DTR this weekend.
I like him, but Chip Kelly, he did us wrong up at Oregon, so let him go. All right, next game.
You wrong?
Next game's a nooner, one we talked about big time. 66.5 over under, 20.5 line. I bet you know who that is, right?
That's the Indiana game.
That's the Indiana Hoosiers going to Columbus, Ohio to take on Ohio State Buckeyes. I am not taking that over. I'm not taking that line, that spread. I'm not taking it. I will take the over under. I think Ohio State is one of those teams that are going to baseline score 40 points every week. I've got Ohio State almost covering.
So you think they'll win by like 17?
I was going to say 14.
Okay.
I can see 17.
I think they're going to blow them out.
I
already gave 52-24.
I think the only way that happens is if – and again, Indiana's not built like Ohio State, but they are the best built to beat Ohio State outside of, right now, Wisconsin. If we thought that Maryland was going to put up points against them, I think a team that's more steady like Indiana is probably going to do better. I don't see them winning. If they do win, it's going to be a monumental upset. I can't wait to read the headlines. But we've seen stuff like this before. I mean, nobody thought that Iowa and Purdue was going to beat the crap out of Ohio State, but they did. I just don't see it in this one, but I don't see them covering. I will not take the line. I will take the over-under. I got Ohio State winning in this one. We already did the Clemson-Florida State game, so we're not going to do that one. I would do the Florida-Vanderbilt game, but Florida's apt to score 278 points in this one, so I'm going to say no. Appalachian State is going to be traveling down to Myrtle Beach Conway to take on Coastal Carolina. I think this is a Jamie Chadwell audition for the South Carolina head coaching job. The over-under is 48, and Coastal Carolina is favored by 5.5. Take it.
I think this line actually opened at 2.5 for Coastal Carolina, and people were pounding it, so they moved it up.
I'm taking that one.
I think Coastal's going to win this game by a touchdown.
Yeah, I think you see
a very similar game to the Louisiana Lafayette game.
Yeah, because both teams are quality, and again, a lot of people want to. This is for the Sun Belt supremacy. Both teams are really, really good. Coastal Carolina's coming in 7-0, ranked 15th in the country. That's amazing for a team that was FCS just a couple years ago. Appalachian State's only lost one. But neither team is going to – I don't think they're going to score a whole lot. I think defensively is going to be really, really good in this game. I've got Coastal Carolina covering, though. I agree with you. I say 7 to 10 points. It's going to be a tight one. Much respect for the Appalachian State team, but I just don't think Coastal Carolina is going to have any of that today. I think they're going to win that one. Let's see. Let's keep talking some football. Ooh, wow. This is interesting just because of the numbers. Don't necessarily like either team, but the numbers on this one. Let me see if you can guess them. Don't look at it. Over under 62.5. Spread is 5 points. What teams are these?
What conference?
ACC. Exactly.
I don't know.
Exactly. Like what?
Who's Miami play?
It's not Miami.
Duke?
Yep.
Who do they play?
So Wake Forest is going to be traveling to Durham, North Carolina to take on the Duke Blue Devils. Yep. Wake Forest is favored by 5 points. The over-under is 62.5. I'm taking Wake to cover that, and I'm going to say triple that.
You think Wake's going to win by 15 plus?
They're going to beat the crap out of Duke. And the reason why is because their offense now has confidence. I know you lost the game against North Carolina, but as long as Sam Hartman is playing the way he did, plus the running backs are playing really, really well, that defense, but they're not going up against an offensive juggernaut this week. They're going up against Chase Bryce and the Duke nobodies. I hate it for the kid because he's so good, but we can't tell because he doesn't have anybody around him. They do have a pretty solid running game, but the running game is not going to win in a game where Wake Forest is going to run 100-plus plays on you. I've got Wake Forest winning this one by like 21 points.
Yeah, I think Wake's going to win and cover.
It's bad. This is not a good game for Duke at all. It's coming off of Wake Forest having confidence after putting up 53 points and losing. I just can't see it happening. But that line was interesting. You want to know an even more interesting game? Let me tell you about this line. Over-under is 64. When you tell you the teams, you can believe what? Over-under 64. The line is 2.
What conference?
SEC.
Who does Auburn play?
Nope. This is
LSU, Arkansas.
LSU and Arkansas. Yeah. So Arkansas is going to host LSU in this game.
Is Arkansas favored?
No.
LSU by 2?
This is LSU. And I'm telling you, I've had a sneaky feeling this whole year, Arkansas is going to beat LSU. I am not taking LSU to cover. I'm taking Arkansas to cover and win the game straight up. I do see that over-under because I know that LSU is going to score points, but they're playing with a skeleton crew. Miles Brennan's out for a while. He's not coming back.
TJ Finley,
It's
right?
TJ Finley. I trust Felipe, which is strange to say, but I trust Felipe Franks and that Arkansas defense with Barry Odom calling the plays. I trust Arkansas to win this game. I got Arkansas with the upset. What are you thinking?
I'm going to take LSU.
Oh, come on, man. LSU, after what they did to us. No, man.
I
can't do it.
I like Arkansas, and I like Felipe. I think they're a good team, but it's I think this is kind of like an LSU bounce-back week. I mean, they can't be that bad, right?
Yeah, they are.
They just won the national title.
No, they're that bad. Here's a game with some intrigue. Cincinnati is going to be going down to Central Florida.
Assuming they're favored by 14?
Nope. Over under 63, they're favored by 6.
What?
6. Now, that tells you the respect that Josh Heupel has.
They're getting disrespected. Nah, they're getting disrespected.
Are you
sure? UCF
sure?
got blown out by Georgia Tech.
They did.
Disrespected.
No, Georgia Tech got blown out by UCF. Yeah. UCF, Dylan Gabriel's playing great, but Desmond Ritter's much better. That whole defense, much better. They're beating teams by like 29 points.
I think that Cincy's going to win.
I think they're going to do everything they can to be the first team in a Power 5 to get in, Group of 5 to get into the playoffs. I see them covering that, and I see them winning with that over and under for sure. I would take the over because I think they're going to put up points. I think both teams are going to put up points, but I still think they can win by 14.
Yeah.
All right, another good game coming up. Battle of Undefeateds. I'm telling you, this is such a strange one. Huh? Wisconsin is traveling to Northwestern.
I was like, who are you talking about?
I know. Northwestern's
Peyton Ramsey had a good game last week.
They're undefeated. They're number 19 in the country. How about that? If Purdue didn't drop it, well, no, it didn't matter because somebody's going to lose.
Purdue should have won. That game, Aiden O'Connell is bad.
And you didn't have Rondale, so
it's bad. They need a quarterback. They need a quarterback in West Lafayette.
It makes a difference, and I think that sucks. But right now, the over/under is 44 points. Makes a lot of sense. Wisconsin is favored at 7.5.
I think that game's going to go over.
I think Wisconsin playing with Graham Mertz the way they are, definitely over. Definitely taking Wisconsin in the cover. Northwestern has no pulse offensively. That defense is spectacular. Choice. That offense can't score. I like Peyton Ramsey.
They had a kid with 3 touchdowns last week, wide receiver.
Sure, against a depleted Purdue defense. They're playing Wisconsin. Not happening in this one. I don't see, and again, we talked about this before. Outside of Peyton Ramsey, can you name an explosive player? The player had 3 touchdowns. You can't. So at this point, I feel like Wisconsin's a better team. They're on a mission. They want to try to win. They've proven everybody wrong, and I'm going to go with Wisconsin in this one to cover and hit that over. Let's see. No, that's a doo-doo bowl. I'm not picking any Alabama game from now on out. Alabama's going to win. The over/under is 58, and Alabama's favored by 31. I'm not even thinking about that.
Mississippi State?
Yeah, they're playing Kentucky.
Oh, they're playing Kentucky.
I'm not picking that. Kentucky is a pesky team, and of course they're playing better now. That was a really, really heartfelt game. They lost their offensive line coach to cancer. Blessing to his family and prayers to them. But they're not going to. 31 points is good. Ooh, this one has some intrigue because we're going to be playing these next two teams in succession. Virginia Tech is traveling to Pittsburgh to play in a game where
Virginia Tech.
I don't know which team is better.
What's the line?
The line is 3.5. Virginia Tech over/under is 55 and a half.
I think Virginia Tech's going to have a really good game this week.
Well, they better. Depends on Coach Fuente. Now, he made that dumb decision to call a timeout.
Yeah, what?
And Liberty won the game.
What are they doing?
I don't know, but those are the kind of things that lose games for you. So that's why I'm saying I don't know. Where I think that Virginia Tech actually might be more talented than Pitt, I feel like Pitt's probably more better coached with Narduzzi, and they are playing at home. But I still think Virginia Tech wins this game. I think we play a Pitt team on a skid, and I would take that over-under.
Last time we played Pitt on a skid?
Actually, I don't know that I'll take that over-under. 55 and a half?
I think I could go under.
I would go under on this one.
Well, Virginia Tech's defense is actually there now that they have COVID people back.
Yeah. Well, their offense has been pretty good.
Yeah, their defense was literally it was funny. I saw a stat that said they had 8 or 9 starters on defense that were
you
COVID.
remember the game they played against North Carolina? They didn't have anybody.
44. Yeah, I swear North Carolina, it was like they threw to anyone. It was like they had a JV team out there on defense.
It was bad, but I don't think I'm going to take the over on this one, and I don't know that the line is accurate either at 3.5. I'd say Virginia Tech can win this game by 10. So I'm gonna take Virginia Tech to cover and the under in this game. We're gonna talk about some other games. Oh, let's talk about a team that you love for some reason. Auburn is gonna be taking on Tennessee. This is gonna be in Jordan-Hare. 49.5 over under. Auburn's favored by 10.5.
Yeah,
I'm taking that. I'm taking that. I don't even think we should say much more about it. I think Tennessee's on a skid, too. I always say this, too. Jim Chaney doesn't do his quarterbacks any favors with the boring play calls. If Clemson fans have a problem with it, you should really thank everything that you do not have Jim Chaney as offense coordinator. Defense has been on a skid, too. I think Auburn's trying to get back in a rhythm, and I definitely see them with that cover and the over in this game. Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. 59.5, 7-point favorite for Oklahoma.
Oklahoma State, you mean?
No.
Oklahoma is
favored by 7.
Okay, I think Oklahoma
because they're not playing in Stillwater. They're playing in Norman. So that makes a difference. Not really when there's not really any fans there, but at the same time, first of all, I'm taking the over. 59.5. Kidding me? Over. The line, I'm going to say Oklahoma State covers even if they lose. 7 points between these teams.
That's a lot.
It's either a blowout or it's super close. So I'm going to go with Oklahoma covering, Oklahoma State covering, taking the over, and I have Oklahoma State winning this game.
Yeah.
Just quickly, Liberty is going to be going to NC State over under 67 points. NC State's favored by 3.5.
Liberty wins, and yeah.
You really?
Yeah, I think Liberty's going to win.
Dang it. I'm going to say they're finally going to get stopped. I think NC State can do it.
You're
Bailey
trusting
Hawkins
Dave Doran.
No, I hate Dave Doran. I hate him the most. But I feel like they have a veteran defense. They have a really good offensive line, 2 really good running backs, and Bailey Hawkins playing decently right now for him. I think they have one of the best tight ends in the conference in Kerry Angeline. I think that Emeka Emezi is one of the best receivers in the country. And Liberty has been riding a high, but for NC State to be favored by 3.5, that does tell you something about how they feel about Liberty. Yeah. I just feel like they're not going to go 3 for 3 against the ACC.
I think Liberty's going to win. I'll take Liberty.
Do you take the over?
No, I think that game goes under.
67 is a lot. Liberty can score a lot.
34-33 is how I viewed him.
Something like that. Malik Willis was the former Auburn quarterback. He got beat out by Bo Nix. Y'all missed out on that one.
Yeah.
Last game that I want to talk about, I guess, that we can get into, because I don't really see. No, there's a couple more. We'll just do this quickly, run through it. Thanks for sticking with us, folks. Missouri at South Carolina. Of course, Missouri's only playing with 56 scholarship players, but South Carolina's playing with literal traffic cones. I don't know that South Carolina can keep Missouri from scoring 50 points. The over-under is 54. Missouri is favored by 6.5.
Wow.
Taking it.
They're favored by 6.5.
Yep. I'm telling you, that is driven by the news of both Israel Mukwamu and J.C. Horn opting out. You also had another play dropped out. Roderick dropped out, too. So 3 starters in your secondary. He was already getting torched. have dropped out.
That's ridiculous.
And then your D-line is starting to hurt a little bit, and then you have their offense again. You know, you can't run the ball a million times with Kevin Harris. They have the exact opposite issue of Clemson. Clemson can throw the ball for 1,000,000 yards, can't run it. They can run for 1,000,000 yards, can't throw it. Colin Hill's not going to win a game against you, and honestly, I'm putting him up against with Bazelak of Missouri and Eli Drinkwitz calling plays, a guy who's giving Clemson some issues. There's zero chance that they keep them from scoring 42. I do see Missouri getting that. I'm going to say Missouri wins this game.
I think Missouri's going to win, too.
And I see the over. Because South Carolina can score. They can score. And Missouri's, I mean, I'm not saying Missouri's a world beater because they're trash too. And they're going to be playing with essentially nobody. But South Carolina's even worse. And then going through this whole head coach thing with Mike Bobo, a guy who got fired at Colorado State, I just don't see it happening. Oh, you want to know the worst game of the year that's not being played? Michigan and Rutgers, because nobody would want to watch that one. Last game, we'll talk about Georgia Tech and Miami. Is that being played? I don't know if that's being played. I think it might be canceled because Georgia Tech with Miami with all the COVID stuff. Yeah, I don't think they're playing the game. So there's not really anything else that you could do. I see a good comment. Squiggly FN says South Carolina couldn't run at all against A&M because A&M actually has a pretty good defense. Missouri does not. So I think that'll work out in their favor. But, folks, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We've had fun with you. Again, if you'll do us a favor and hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell. And if you're on Facebook, please hit the like button, share the page, tell all your friends about it if you like it. We don't want you here if you don't want to watch it. Guys, you know, this week is going to be interesting to see what happens. There's going to be a lot of cancellations. I'm sure it's Tuesday right now. I'm sure we'll have some more games be postponed and canceled, but we'll see what happens. We'll take any football over nothing. Guys, bless you and your family. I hope you have a very, very safe Thanksgiving. Whenever that is, I don't even know because COVID has just wrecked my schedule. But you guys have a great night. Thank you for joining. And as always, it's great to be a Clemson Tiger. Terrible to be a South Carolina game